How's it going, folks? Thought I'd bring you along and show you how we use the compost from the compost cage. Did a bit of a clip on it the other week. And I had a couple of people ask there and since how we were going to use all that compost. Well, yeah, I wish we had more. We had to use it very sparingly around the patch. So I thought I'd give you a bit of a quick rundown of a few different ways we've used it. The first thing we did was with about 3 barrow loads, so I said about 300 litres worth, we went through it and picked out worms by hand, the old-fashioned way. Basically set up a tray on the old ironing board, went through one by one picking out the worms, got a stack, absolutely blew us away how many we harvested. Loads of worms, loads of cocoons, probably about 3 2-litre ice cream containers, so about 6 litres roughly of worms, plus bits of compost for them to hide in, so well and truly chuffed with that amount of worms. Some of the compost was then sieved out. I picked up a couple of little cheap sieves at the Sunday markets, sieved it out and made up some seedling mix. What I did was use 2 parts of the very finely sieved compost with 1 part of cocoa coir that had been hydrated, nice and fluffy, mixed it all together, and I'm actually using it to germinate some green cauliflower and some giant cauliflower, Naples I think it is, thanks Nathan. So I've got them in a little punnet around the side of the house. A couple of barrel loads of the compost also went into some drums just behind the camera here. What it is I'm trying to activate or charge some biochar. Biochar, for those people who don't know, is basically wood or organic matter that's been cooked and in an oxygen-less environment. So it's basically carbon. You've got carbon in there. To activate it or to charge it, what you do is you put it in liquid solution, or you can put it with worm castings or compost like I've done. And what happens is the water go into the little millions of little microscopic pores within the char, and it basically soaks up water, hydrates it, nutrients get stored in there as well, and it gives bacteria somewhere to live. Bacteria are very important in your garden. They're what eat elements and bits of organic matter and things like that, and makes it available for the plants to take up. So it's a nice little home for the bacteria in that char. That compost there is actually going to sit there for about a month, maybe 2 months, while it's charging or activating the biochar, and then it's going into some aquaponic grow beds. A lot of it has also been used to plan out different plants around the yard. Underneath all the brassicas, a lot of the brassicas and that, I've put a good handful of the compost just under them as they've gone into the yard itself. The polyculture bed beside me here, it got a nice smattering of loose compost just all over the surface and then watered in. That bed's just boomed. I'm mighty impressed with that. The broccoli next to me is doing really well. The wombok down the back, all of them are doing really well, and I've sort of put it down to the fact that we're using this compost. Yeah, I'm really impressed with the amount of growth some plants have put on. I also started off a new wet pot garden, or potted wet pot garden, up the side of the house. I've used a couple of the air pruning bags that Dale from Media Maker 2000 channel sent me. Cheers mate, thank you very much. And I've planted out pineapple. What else have I done? A small curry tree that's not looking too good. Repotted a chili from a deteriorated air pruning bag, and a couple of zucchinis that are just flying along at the moment. So the compost mix looks to be doing all right. I'm really happy with that. Also fed up the asparagus bed, one of them at the front of the house. I haven't got to the second one yet. I think I've got enough compost left to do it. Basically just chop back the ferns and threw a whole heap of compost on top. It's winter here in Australia at the moment, so yeah, I thought I'd give it a bit of a cut back, and that'll give it a bit of food for the next year's crop. I've also kept a bag of compost aside, and I'm making up compost tea with that. What I'm doing is adding one of my square buckets. I think they're about 15 litres or so. What's that? Probably about 2 gallons. I may be wrong there, but I'm adding half of one of them into a 60 litre barrel and just filling it up with water, giving it a bit of a stir, and then I'm collecting the water after I take all the floaty bits off the top. I'm collecting the water or the tea, and I'm using that to feed up the wicking barrels. The wicking beds I'm not too worried about. They've got loads of horse manure and compost worms in them and that sort of things, but the barrels, they tend to, the plants in there tend to chew through the nutrients pretty quickly, so I've been feeding them up with some of the compost tea, and they've been loving it. I've probably got enough for, just looking at my bag, it's about half full. I've probably got enough for about 3 or 4 more doses of that, and then I'll be back to the store-bought nutrients. So yeah, I'm really thinking I'm going to have to make up a lot more compost next time. So what I'm planning to do now is actually expand our compost making. We've got the cage from before that I used, and we've got a couple more IBCs around the side of the house, and I think I can salvage one of the cages when I make my parents' aquaponics setup. So I'd like to have at least 2 of these compost piles going at once. I've got a whole heap of leaves and branches from the mango beside me here over the chook pen. They need to come off. They're shading out the chooks, and not only that, they're starting to encroach over the aquaponics setup, so those branches can come back. I can mulch them up and use them as a bit of green and brown in the new compost setup. We've got the Chinese elms on the other fence. They need to be pruned back, and the neighbour said I can jump the fence and grab some branches off her large tree as well. Thank you, Pauline. I've got some hay bales out the front that I want to use up there from the old hay bale bed. I've been using them slowly to mulch things and that sort of thing, but the remaining bales will go into the new compost, along with some more that we're going to have to buy, unfortunately. Corn stalks, I've been saving them up from the gem corn out the back here, and also the Balinese, so they're going to be mulched up and added in there as a bit of brown. And yeah, horse manure and just bits and pieces from around the yard. So going to have 2 cages going. Once they stop cooking, I'll be, like I mentioned before, grabbing the worms from underneath the house, throwing them in there, and they can just finish off the compost pile. It is a slow method. It takes 4 to 6 months, but after seeing the compost that it made, it's just blown me away. I thought I made good compost last year, but this stuff is just fantastic. So I think it'll be our preferred method. And also too, the worms is a way to keep the worm population growing as well. So that's pretty much all it. Just go through my list onto the camera. I think I've covered everything. If you do have any comments, questions or suggestions about this compost clip or any of the other clips on compost or worm farming that we've done, pop them in the comment section here or under those clips and I'll get back to you. Other than that, I suppose that's pretty much all it. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram if you're that way inclined. If not, I hope you've been enjoying the clips, and have a great one all. Catch ya.